The sky above Seoul burned with lights that didn't belong there. Daehyun stood on the military base, watching ships descend through the clouds. They were massive, shaped like crescents and pyramids, nothing like the aircraft he'd trained to fight against. His rifle felt like a toy in his hands. 3 years had passed since first contact. 3 years since the world learned it wasn't alone. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council, and they'd promised peace and cooperation. They'd promised to share technology and knowledge. They'd promised Earth a place among the stars. Today, those promises turned to ash. Daehyun's radio crackled. Every soldier on base was ordered to watch the broadcast. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. The screen showed the council chamber, a massive ring of seats floating in space above a dead moon. Hundreds of alien species filled those seats. Some had scales, others had feathers. Some looked almost human. Most looked like nightmares. At the center stood Ambassador Hana. She wore a simple blue suit, her hair pulled back tight. She looked so small compared to the creatures surrounding her. Daehyun had seen her speeches before. She was strong, intelligent, always composed. But now her hands trembled as she gripped the podium. "I speak for 7 billion human beings," Hana said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "We have done nothing to threaten you. We have offered friendship. We have shared our culture and history. I ask you now, please, recognize Earth's right to exist as a free and independent world." A creature that looked like a mantis made of crystal spoke next. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "The human species is classified as primitive. They still engage in warfare. They poison their own planet. They have no unified government. Under council law, such species may be designated for supervised development." "Supervised development?" Hannah repeated. "You mean slavery?" Another alien stood, this one covered in thick armor plates. "We prefer the term Class 7 servitor species. Humans will be distributed among member civilizations to provide labor. In return, Earth will receive protection and limited technology access." Daehyun watched Hannah's face go pale. "You can't do this. We're a sentient species. We have rights." "You have the rights we grant you," the crystal mantis said. "The council voted 3 cycles ago. Today, we merely formalized the decision. All in favor of designating humanity as Class 7 servitors, indicate now." Lights appeared across the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Daehyun counted them, even though he already knew. Green dominated the display. 800 species, and only 43 voted red. The vote wasn't even close. "Motion passes," the mantis announced. "Earth is hereby classified as a servitor world. The Vorathian Empire, the Celtic Consortium, and the Braxian hegemony will divide harvesting rights. Collection begins immediately." Hana stumbled backward. 2 alien guards caught her arms. She struggled, shouting words the broadcast didn't translate. Then the feed cut out. Daehyun's phone slipped from his fingers. Around him, other soldiers stood frozen. Someone was crying. Someone else was cursing. The base commander's voice boomed over the speakers, calling everyone to defensive positions. It didn't matter. Daehyun knew it didn't matter. He'd seen those ships. He'd read the intelligence reports. Humanity's most advanced weapons couldn't scratch their shields. Earth's nuclear arsenal would be neutralized before launch. They'd already lost, and the war hadn't even started. The ships landed at sunset. They came down in every major city on Earth. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Mumbai, São Paulo. Daehyun's unit rushed to the perimeter as one settled in the Han River. It displaced water for miles. Steam rose around its hull. A ramp extended. Creatures marched down wearing armor that shimmered with energy fields. They were tall, at least 8 feet, with 4 arms and faces hidden behind helmets. Behind them came smaller aliens carrying devices that hummed with power. "Hold fire," the commander ordered. "Wait for my signal." Deihayan aimed at the nearest alien. His finger rested on the trigger. Sweat dripped into his eyes. The aliens spread out, surrounding the base. They moved with precision, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. They probably had. "All human military personnel," a voice boomed from the ship. It spoke perfect Korean. "Your resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed. You will be processed and assigned to appropriate labor facilities. Families will be kept together when possible." "When possible," Deihayan muttered. Like they were talking about luggage that a young private near him fired. The bullet sparked off an alien's shield and ricocheted into the ground. The aliens didn't even flinch. One raised a weapon that looked like a twisted piece of metal. Purple light erupted from it. The private screamed once, then collapsed. His body twitched and went still. Smoke rose from his uniform. "Surrender now?" the voice repeated. "This is your only warning." The base commander lowered his weapon. Others followed. Deihayan kept his rifle raised for another moment. But what was the point? They couldn't win. Not here. Not today. He dropped his rifle and raised his hands. The processing took hours. The aliens moved through Seoul district by district. They set up collection points in parks and stadiums. Families were separated into groups. Children with children, adults with adults, elderly with elderly. They scanned everyone with devices that glowed blue. Deihayan stood in line with thousands of others. Soldiers, civilians, it didn't matter anymore. Everyone wore the same expression of shock and fear. A mother clutched her daughter, refusing to let go. An alien guard pulled them apart with casual strength. The mother's screams faded as she was led away. "Name," an alien said when Deihayan reached the front. "Corporal Deihayan. Korean Defense Forces. Military experience, excellent." The alien marked something on its device. "You'll be assigned to security labor. Low risk of rebellion. Sector 7 processing. What about my family?" "Information on family units will be provided at your assigned facility. I need to know if they're alive." The alien stared at him with eyes that looked like black glass. "Move along or be moved." Deihayan clenched his fists but obeyed. He joined a column of people being herded toward transport ships. The vessels were dark inside, packed with bodies. He found a space against the wall and sat down. Others pressed in around him. A young man sat beside him. He couldn't have been more than 19. His hands were covered in grease, his clothes marked with engine oil. "I'm Jin Woo," he said quietly. "Deihayan. My brother. He's in the military. Do you think they'll keep us together?" Deihayan looked at the boy's face and saw hope there. Stupid, desperate hope. He wanted to tell the truth, that they'd probably never see their families again. That the aliens didn't care about human bonds or human feelings. That they were cargo now, nothing more. But he couldn't destroy that hope. "Not yet. Maybe," he said instead. "Maybe they will." The ship's engines rumbled to life. The ramp closed, sealing them in darkness. Through a small window, Deihayan caught one last glimpse of Earth. The blue sky. The green mountains. The city he'd sworn to defend. Then the ship lifted off, and Earth fell away below them. The age of human freedom had ended. But Deihayan made himself a promise in that darkness, surrounded by the terrified breathing of his fellow prisoners. This wasn't over. Somehow, some way, humanity would find a way to fight back. They just had to survive long enough to learn how. 5 years changed everything. 5 years of breaking rocks in radioactive mines. 5 years of breathing air that burned human lungs. 5 years of watching friends die from exhaustion and despair. But 5 years also taught humanity something the aliens never expected. Humans learned fast. Dai Hyan swung his plasma cutter through another section of asteroid. The tool hummed in his hands, its alien technology now as familiar as breathing. Around him, dozens of other humans worked in the vacuum of space, their suits salvaged and modified from alien equipment. The overseers watched from floating platforms, bored and careless. That carelessness would kill them eventually. "Section 9 clear," a voice said in his helmet. It was young Me, the woman who'd kept their group alive through illness and injury. She'd been a medic on Earth. Now she was something more. A leader, a planner. "Acknowledged," Daehyun replied. He moved to the next section, his magnetic boots clanking against the asteroid's surface. 3 other workers followed him. They looked like slaves. They acted like slaves. But their eyes held something the aliens never bothered to notice. Calculation. On the other side of the galaxy. Hannah stared at the screen in her tiny quarters. She worked in a Celtic administrative center now, filing reports and managing supply chains. The Celtic were squid-like creatures who valued efficiency above all else. They'd recognized her intelligence and given her access to their computer systems. Another mistake. For 3 years, Hannah had been copying files, learning alien languages, and mapping the galaxy's communication networks. She knew which species hated each other. She knew which trade routes were critical. She knew where weapons were manufactured and where food was grown. Most importantly, she knew where humans were, scattered across the galaxy on 800 worlds, working in the jobs no alien wanted. Radiation cleanup, deep space construction, toxic waste processing. The aliens had chosen humans specifically because they could endure conditions that killed most species. But endurance wasn't humanity's only gift. Hannah pulled up another file. It showed human population distributions across the Varathian Empire. 2 million humans working in their power generation facilities. 500,000 maintaining their faster-than-light gates. 300,000 in weapons manufacturing. The aliens had made humanity critical to their infrastructure. They'd built their entire economy around human labor. They thought humans were too stupid to realize it. They were wrong. A message appeared on her screen. It was encrypted in a code she'd developed herself, hidden inside routine maintenance reports. The message was from someone called Tae Young. He claimed to be organizing resistance cells in the Braxian territories. Hannah smiled and began typing her response. Jinwoo's hands moved across the alien device with practiced ease. He'd been studying Varathian technology for 4 years now, ever since they'd assigned him to equipment maintenance. The overseers thought humans made good technicians. They could fit into small spaces, and their fingers were nimble. They never imagined humans could improve their designs. The plasma rifle in front of Jinwoo looked standard, but he'd modified the power cell to hold twice the charge. He'd adjusted the focusing array to increase range. He'd added a safety mechanism that only human hands could activate. How many? Daehyun asked. He stood guard at the workshop door while Jinwoo worked. 23 completed. Another 40 in progress. We need more. I'm working as fast as I can, brother. Daehyun turned. Jinwoo looked older than his 24 years. Prison labor did that. But his eyes still held that spark of genius that had gotten him accepted into Seoul's best engineering school before the aliens came. I know, Daehyun said. You're doing great. An alarm sounded. Both men froze. Daehyun grabbed a mining tool and tried to look busy. Jinwoo shoved the modified rifle under a workbench and pulled out a broken scanner. An overseer floated into the room. It was Varathian, all 4 arms crossed in what might have been annoyance. This sector is behind quota, it said in mechanical Korean. Explain. Equipment failure, Jin Woo replied, holding up the scanner. The radiation here is stronger than normal. It damages our tools faster. The overseer examined the scanner with one hand, while its other 3 arms worked on a datapad. Efficiency has decreased by 7% this cycle. Unacceptable. We're doing our best. Your best is insufficient. The overseer pressed something on its pad. Disciplinary action required. Select 3 workers for punishment. Dae Hyan's blood went cold. Punishment meant the correction chambers. Most humans didn't survive them. Take me, he said. I'm the supervisor. It's my responsibility. Negative. Supervisors are too valuable. Select 3 others, or I will select 6. Jin Woo caught Dae Hyan's eye and gave a tiny shake of his head. They couldn't fight. Not yet. They weren't ready. Dae Hyan closed his eyes and chose 3 names. He'd remember them. He'd remember all of them. Across the galaxy, resistance cells were growing. In every camp, on every station, humans were organizing. They passed messages through work crews. They hid weapons in maintenance tunnels. They studied their captors and learned their weaknesses. Young me had discovered something remarkable. Human bodies, exposed to alien diseases and radiation for years, had begun to adapt. Their immune systems were evolving in real time. She documented cases of humans surviving injuries that should have killed them. The aliens had tried to break humanity. Instead, they'd made humanity stronger. Taeyang led a group of 40 humans in the Braxian mining colonies. He'd been special forces on Earth, trained in guerrilla warfare. Now he trained other humans in the same tactics. How to move silently in low gravity. How to disable security systems. How to kill an alien with bare hands if necessary. The Braxian overseers were brutal. They executed humans for the smallest infractions. But their brutality had created exactly what they feared most, humans with nothing left to lose. We hit the armory next week, Taeyang told his cell during a secret meeting in the mine tunnels. We go in quiet, take what we can carry, and disappear before they know we were there. And if they catch us? Someone asked. They won't. I've been watching the guard rotations for 6 months. There's a 4-minute window during shift change. That's all we need. A woman named Baora raised her hand. She'd been a communications technician on Earth. I can disable the cameras for 6 minutes. Maybe 7. 4 is enough. The meeting ended, and everyone returned to their quarters before the guards noticed they were gone. Taeyang stayed in the tunnels a bit longer, staring at the rock walls. He'd scratched marks into the stone for every day he'd been a slave. The wall was covered with them now, but he'd started scratching something else recently. Plans, targets, escape routes. The aliens thought they'd conquered humanity. They were about to learn they'd made a terrible mistake. Jin Woo worked through the night, his hands moving automatically while his mind raced. He'd been building something in secret for months. Not weapons. Something better. A communication system. The aliens controlled all the galaxy's networks. They monitored every message. But Jin Woo had discovered something about quantum mechanics that even the ancient Celtic hadn't realized. Information could be entangled across infinite distances. Messages could be sent instantly without using any network at all. He'd built the first prototype and tested it last week. It worked. He'd contacted a resistance cell 3 star systems away. The message had arrived instantly, and the aliens had no idea it had been sent. Now he was building more. 1 for every major human population center in the galaxy. Once activated, every resistance cell could communicate in real time. They could coordinate. They could plan. They could strike together. The door opened and Dae Hyan entered. You should sleep, he said. Can't. I'm too close. Dae Hyan sat down beside his brother. How long? 2 months. Maybe 3. We don't have that long. The overseers are getting suspicious. Yesterday, they searched the south tunnels. Found one of our supply caches. Jin Woo's hands stopped moving. Did they trace it back to us? Not yet. But they will if we're not careful. Then I'll work faster. Dai Hien put a hand on his brother's shoulder. I need you alive more than I need quantum communicators. You need both. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the asteroid rotated slowly, bringing them around to face the distant sun. Through the small window, they could see Earth's star. It was just a tiny point of light from here, barely distinguishable from the others. But they both knew which one it was. They'd spent 5 years staring at it, remembering home. Do you think we'll ever see it again? Jin Woo asked quietly. Dai Hien didn't answer right away. He'd learned not to make promises he couldn't keep. But some promises were worth making anyway. Yes, he said. We'll see Earth again. And when we do, we'll be free. I don't know how, but we'll find a way. Jin Woo nodded and returned to his work. Dai Hien watched him for a moment longer, then headed back to his quarters. He needed rest. Tomorrow would bring more work, more exhaustion, more surveillance. But tomorrow was one day closer to freedom. Across the galaxy, 2 million enslaved humans went to sleep dreaming the same dream. And in the shadows, their leaders prepared for a war the galaxy would never see coming. The night Jin Woo died, the galaxy learned what humanity truly was. Dai Hien received the message during his shift. It came through official channels, a simple notification on his work tablet. Prisoner Jin Woo, designation 4729B, executed for theft of Celtic property. Body disposed of according to standard protocols. 50 others had died with him. The Celtic overseer on Station Kappa 7 had decided to make an example. Someone had stolen food rations. Rather than investigate, the overseer simply killed the entire work crew. Dai Hien stood in the asteroid mine, surrounded by floating rocks and vacuum, and something inside him broke. Not his spirit. Something deeper. The part of him that still believed in rules and mercy and justice. That part died with his brother. He finished his shift in silence, went to his quarters in silence, lay on his bunk staring at the ceiling while his mind worked through scenarios and possibilities. Around him, other humans whispered about the executions. Some cried. Others raged. All of them felt the same helplessness. Then Dai Hien's communicator buzzed. Not the official one. The secret device Jin Woo had given him 3 weeks ago. The quantum communicator that shouldn't have existed. He pulled it out and stared at the screen. A message appeared, spreading across every frequency, reaching every human in the galaxy simultaneously. This is Hana. Jin Woo's final gift is active. Every resistance cell can now communicate instantly. The network is live, and I'm accelerating our timeline. We don't wait 3 years. We don't wait 3 months. The galaxy thinks we're broken. Let's show them what broken really looks like. Dai Hien sat up slowly. Around him, others were checking their own communicators. Eyes that had been dead suddenly blazed with something dangerous. Hope, mixed with fury, made a weapon sharper than any plasma blade. Young me, read Hana's message twice before she believed it. She was on a medical station, orbiting a gas giant, treating humans who worked in the atmosphere processors below. The conditions there melted most species' skin. Humans just got sick and kept working. She'd been preparing for this moment for 5 years. Building stockpiles of medicine. Training others in emergency surgery. Creating treatment. Protocols for radiation exposure that surpassed Celtic medical knowledge. Now she pulled up her records. Every human under her care. Every weakness in station security. Every possible escape route. She began typing orders to her cell leaders, watching as they acknowledged each message instantly. Jin Woo had promised her the network would change everything. He'd been right, but it had cost him his life. Tai Yang stood in the armory of Braxian Colony 7-9, surrounded by stolen weapons. His raid had succeeded perfectly. 4 minutes in and out, just like he'd planned. Now he had enough firepower to arm 200 humans. The quantum communicator in his pocket vibrated continuously as messages flooded in from across the galaxy. Cell leaders reporting their status. Supply caches being confirmed. Target lists being updated. Hana's message had been the spark. Now humanity was ready to burn. Are we really doing this? One of his team asked. Her name was Hyun Soo, a civilian engineer who'd learned to fight out of necessity. Yes, Taeyang said. We're done being slaves. We'll die. Maybe. But we'll die fighting. Hyun Soo smiled grimly and began distributing weapons. Others in the cell moved with practiced efficiency, checking charges and testing sites. They'd trained for this in secret for years. Hyun had shared tactics across the network. Young Mi had taught them how to treat combat injuries. Hana had given them targets. Now, they just needed the order to strike. It came 3 days later. Hana sat in her quarters, surrounded by stolen datapads and hacked communication devices. She'd spent 72 hours coordinating with every resistance cell in the galaxy. The plan was insane, ambitious, probably impossible. It would work. She recorded her message carefully, checking every word. This wasn't a speech for Earth's government. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a declaration of war. To all human resistance cells, she began. For 7 years, we've been slaves. We've been beaten, starved, worked to death. They took our homes. They took our families. They took our freedom. Today, we take it back. She paused, letting the words sink in. You all know your targets. Power stations. Communication hubs. Faster-than-light gates. Weapons factories. In 72 hours, we strike simultaneously across 800 worlds. The galaxy thinks we're broken tools. Let's remind them that tools can be weapons. Another pause. Some of us won't survive this. Many of us, probably. But we're dying anyway, slowly, in their minds and factories. At least this way, we die as free humans. We die fighting. And maybe, just maybe, we win. She looked directly into the camera. This is for Jin Woo and the billions like him. This is for Earth. This is for humanity. Strike hard. Strike fast. And show them what they created when they tried to enslave us. The message went out across the quantum network. 2 million humans received it simultaneously. In mines and factories, in ships and stations, on planets and asteroids. Humanity prepared for war. The aliens noticed nothing. Hyun gathered his cell in the maintenance tunnels. 38 humans, all that remained of the original 300 who'd arrived on this asteroid. The others had died in accidents, from sickness, or in the correction chambers. Now the survivors looked at him with expressions he recognized from Earth. His old unit had worn the same look before combat. Fear mixed with determination. Terror held in check by duty. You've all read the message, he said. You know the plan. At exactly 0800 station time, we take the control center. Kill the overseers. Lock down the facility. Hold it for as long as possible. And then? Someone asked. Then we hope the rest of humanity does the same. Young Mi's voice came through the communicator. Medical teams are standing by across all facilities. We're ready. Taeyang's voice followed. Strike teams armed and positioned. We're ready. Ora added. Communication jammers prepared. We can give you 5 minutes of silence before the Varathians realize what's happening. Use them well. Voices began flooding in from across the galaxy. Cell after cell reporting ready status. Daehyun listened to them all, feeling something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Pride. That pride in what humanity had become. Not despite slavery, but because of it. The aliens had scattered them across the stars, thinking distance would prevent organization. Instead, humanity had learned to communicate instantly across space. They'd tried to break human spirit with hard labor. Instead, humanity had grown stronger, adapted, evolved. Every mistake the aliens made had forged humanity into something sharper. 72 hours, Daehyun said. Get some rest. Eat well. Prepare your gear. And remember, we're not fighting for revenge. We're fighting for freedom. For Earth. For everyone who died getting us to this point. The meeting ended. People dispersed to prepare. Only young Me remained, her image flickering on his communicator screen. Do you think we can actually win? She asked quietly. Daehyun considered lying, saying something inspirational and hopeful. But young Me deserved the truth. I don't know, he said. The aliens have better weapons, better ships, better technology. They've been spacefaring for thousands of years, while we barely made it to our own moon. But they've forgotten how to fight. They've been comfortable for too long. They think war is something you win with superior equipment. They don't understand that humans have been killing each other for our entire history. We know violence in ways they've forgotten. Young Me nodded slowly. Jin Woo believed we could win. Jin Woo was smarter than both of us. Then let's make sure he didn't die for nothing. The 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Humans across the galaxy made final adjustments to weapons, memorized escape routes, and said goodbye to friends who might not survive. The aliens noticed some unusual behavior, but dismissed it. Slaves got nervous sometimes. It meant nothing. On the final night, Daehyun lay in his bunk, unable to sleep. He thought about Earth, about his family scattered across the galaxy or dead, about Jin Woo, who'd been brilliant and funny and entirely too young to dot, about all the humans who'd suffered under alien rule. Tomorrow, that suffering would end. One way or another. His communicator buzzed one final time. Hana's voice, calm and steady. All cells, this is final confirmation. Strike time is 0800, synchronized across all time zones. The galaxy enslaved us. Tonight, we remind them that humanity doesn't stay down. See you on the other side. Daehyun closed his eyes and forced himself to rest. In 8 hours, the galaxy would learn what humanity truly was. Not a servitor species. A threat. 0800 came with fire and blood. Daehyun moved through the control center like death itself. The overseers never saw him coming. They were checking reports, drinking their stimulants, complaining about efficiency numbers. They thought this morning would be like every other morning for the past 7 years. They were wrong. The first overseer died when Daehyun's plasma blade punched through its back. The second managed to trigger an alarm before Young Mi shot it from the doorway. The third actually got its weapon up, but Hyun-Soo tackled it from the side and drove a mining tool through its throat. 20 seconds. 3 dead. Control center secured. Lock the doors, Daehyun ordered. Be-Ora, cut external communications. Everyone else, defensive positions. His team moved with precision. They'd practiced this 100 times in secret. Now muscle memory took over. Barricades went up. Weapons were positioned at choke points. Someone activated the quantum communicator and patched into the network. The reports began flooding in. Helios 9 secured. 6 overseers dead. No human casualties. Station Kappa 7 captured. 15 overseers eliminated. 2 humans wounded. Colony 7-9 in our hands. Heavy fighting. 23 human casualties, but were holding. On and on it went. Across 800 worlds, humans were striking simultaneously. Power stations went dark. Communication arrays exploded. Faster-than-light gates locked down. Weapons factories erupted in flames. In 1 hour, humanity crippled the infrastructure of galactic civilization. The Varathian Empire reacted first. Their fleet command received fragmented reports of rebellions and immediately dispatched military forces. They expected to crush the uprisings within days. They'd dealt with slave revolts before. Overwhelming force always worked. They'd never fought humans before. The Varathian battle fleet arrived at Helios 9 3 days after Deihion seized control. 50 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. The fleet commander opened communications, expecting immediate surrender. Rebel humans, you are ordered to stand down. Return to your work assignments or face extinction. Deihion stood in the control center, watching the fleet on the scanner. 50 ships against his stolen station. Any sane person would surrender, but 7 years of slavery had taught humanity that surrender meant death anyway. At least this way, they'd go down fighting. This is Corporal Deihion of Earth. We reject your authority. Come and take this station if you can. The fleet commander actually laughed. Your defiance is pointless. We will destroy you and everyone on that station. Probably, Deihion agreed. But you'll have to get through our defenses first. What defenses? You have 1 station and no fleet. Deihion smiled. Who said we have no fleet? From behind the asteroid field, ships emerged. They were pieced together from stolen parts and salvaged equipment. Human crews flying vessels they'd been secretly building for years. 30 ships total, each one held together by hope and desperation. The Varathian commander stopped. Laughing, the battle lasted 6 hours. Human ships flew in ways the Varathians had never seen. They used the asteroid field for cover, popping out to fire, then disappearing again. They sacrificed damaged vessels to destroy larger targets. They targeted engines and life support instead of heavily armored sections. 15 human ships died, but they took down 19 Varathian vessels before the rest. Retreated. Deihion watched the enemy flee on his scanner and allowed himself 1 moment of satisfaction. Then he got back to work. The Varathians would be back with more ships. Humanity had bought itself time, nothing more. But time was all they needed. The Celtic Consortium tried a different approach. They blockaded Earth itself, threatening to destroy humanity's homeworld unless the rebellion stopped. It was a logical strategy. Humans were emotional creatures. They'd surrender to save their birthplace. The Celtic hadn't counted on Tae-Young. He'd been gathering ships for 3 years, hiding them in the Oort cloud where sensors couldn't detect them. Stolen vessels, captured transports, anything that could fly and fight. He'd named them the Free Fleet and trained their crews in tactics the galaxy had forgotten. When the Celtic blockade formed, Tae-Young struck. The Battle of Earth orbit became legend. 300 human ships against 1,000 Celtic vessels. Humanity was outnumbered and outgunned. They took 60% casualties. But they fought with a fury the Celtic couldn't match. Tae-Young led from the front in a captured Celtic cruiser. He flew straight into their formation, weapons blazing, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is our home, our world. You want it? Come take it from our corpses. The Celtic tried, but humans had been killing each other in creative ways for thousands of years. They knew how to fight dirty. They rammed ships when their weapons failed. They detonated damaged vessels to take out enemies. They broadcast false surrender signals and attacked when the Celtic moved in. On the 3rd day, the Celtic blockade broke. The survivors fled to faster-than-light distance and jumped away. Earth remained free. Tae-Young's ship was barely functioning, held together by emergency welds and prayers. But he'd won. Humanity had defended its homeworld against an empire that had conquered hundreds of species. The Braxian hegemony chose the cruelest option. They began executing human prisoners, thousands at a time. They broadcast the executions across all channels, demanding that rebels surrender or watch their fellow humans die. Hyan-Su watched the broadcasts from her hidden base on Tartarus 3. She'd been a civilian engineer on Earth. Now she was something else. Something harder. "They're killing us anyway," she said to herself. "At least we can make them pay for it." Tartarus 3 had massive automated ore freighters, kilometers long and filled with radioactive material. They flew on predictable routes from the mines to the processing stations. Hyan-Su had been studying those routes for 2 years. Now she put her knowledge to use. The freighter weighed 1 billion tons. She reprogrammed its navigation computer during a routine maintenance check, changed its destination from the processing station to the Braxian regional headquarters. The ship was designed to be automated. No one checked its flight path manually. It crashed into the headquarters at 1/10 light speed. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. 17,000 Braxian administrators died instantly. The shockwave destroyed 6 nearby stations. The Braxian response fleet was vaporized before they could launch. Hyan-Su watched the blast on her scanner and felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction. Just cold calculation. 1 freighter for 17,000 enemies. The math was simple. The hegemony stopped executing prisoners after that. 6 months into the war, the 3 empires controlled less territory than when they'd started. Their economies were collapsing. Their fleets were being destroyed faster than they could build new ones. Their member species were questioning why they were dying to maintain slavery, but the empires refused to yield. Pride wouldn't let them. They couldn't admit that humans, the species they designated as servitors, were beating them. Young-Me coordinated medical responses across 200 worlds. Human casualties were devastating. Thousands died daily. But she discovered something remarkable. Humans who survived combat recovered faster than any species in the galaxy. Their bodies adapted to injuries. Their minds processed trauma and kept functioning. 7 years of slavery had prepared humanity for war in ways the aliens couldn't understand. Hannah worked from a captured Celtic station, coordinating strategy across all fronts. She'd stopped sleeping more than 4 hours a night. Her hair had gone gray despite being only 41. But her mind remained sharp. She studied reports constantly. Which empires were weakening? Which species might become allies? Which tactics were working? Where humanity needed to focus its limited resources, the galaxy had 800 civilized species. Only 3 had enslaved humanity. That meant 797 potential allies. Hannah began reaching out to them quietly. "We don't want to conquer anyone," she told an avian diplomat in a secret meeting. "We just want to be free. Help us, and humanity will remember. We'll trade with you, share our discoveries, become partners instead of enemies." The Avian Concordat was the first to openly support human independence. Then the Aquatic Federation. Then others. Mid-level powers who'd never benefited from slavery, and who feared what would happen if humans turned their fury on the entire galaxy. A coalition formed. Not strong enough to fight the 3 empires directly, but strong enough to demand negotiations. Hyan stood on the observation deck of Helios 9, now converted into humanity's military headquarters. Through the window, he could see human ships arriving and departing constantly. Wounded being brought in. Supplies being distributed. Orders being dispatched. Young-Me joined him. She looked exhausted, her medical uniform stained with blood that wouldn't wash out. How many today? Daehyun asked. 417 dead, 900 wounded. We saved most of them. That's good, is it? She stared at the ships. We've lost 60,000 people in 6 months. How many more before this ends? Daehyun had no answer. He'd stopped counting the dead after the first week. It hurt too much. Jin Woo would know what to say, young Mi continued. He always had the right words. Jin Woo would tell us to keep fighting, that every death brings us closer to freedom. And if we lose? Daehyun looked at her. Then we lose as free humans, not as slaves. That's worth something. Young Mi nodded slowly. Yes, I suppose it is. A message came through the quantum network. Hana's voice, urgent. All commanders, the Avian Concordat is calling for peace negotiations. The empires are agreeing. We have 7 days to prepare our terms. Daehyun and young Mi exchanged glances. 7 months ago, they'd been slaves. Now they were being invited to negotiate as equals. The galaxy was learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. Humanity wasn't a servitor species. They were warriors. And warriors didn't negotiate from their knees. The peace summit took place on neutral ground, a space station maintained by the Avian Concordat. Hana arrived with Daehyun, young Mi, Taeyang, and a dozen other human representatives. They wore simple clothes, not uniforms. They carried no weapons, though every one of them knew 50 ways to kill without tools. 7 years ago, Hana had stood before the Galactic Council as a supplicant, begging for Earth's freedom. Today, she walked into the negotiation chamber as a conqueror. The 3 empires sent their highest officials. The Vorathian Prime, who ruled 200 worlds. The Celtic Consortium Speaker, who controlled the galaxy's trade routes. The Braxian Supreme Commander, whose fleets had terrorized half the galaxy. They all looked, diminished somehow, tired. Afraid. Good. The avian mediator opened the proceedings. We gather to end the human conflict and establish terms for lasting peace. The Vorathian Empire, Celtic Consortium, and Braxian hegemony have agreed to recognize humanity's demands for independence. The question now is what form that independence will take. Hana stood and activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy, with human-controlled territories marked in blue. They were scattered across hundreds of systems, a cancer spreading through 3 empires. These are our terms, she said. Her voice was calm, but everyone in the room heard the iron beneath. Complete and immediate independence for Earth and all human colonies. Return of all human prisoners within 6 months, with no exceptions. Reparations paid over 20 years to rebuild what you destroyed. Criminal trials for those who ordered atrocities against humans. A permanent human seat on the Galactic Council. And demilitarization of all 3 empires to prevent this from happening again. The Vorathian Prime's translator conveyed his response with crystal clarity. Impossible. You ask us to dismantle our entire power structure. Yes, we could crush you. Our combined fleets outnumber yours 10 to 1. Hana smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Try it. We'll destroy your infrastructure before you land a single ship. Every power station humanity runs. Every faster-than-light gate we maintain. Every weapons factory where our people work. It all goes dark. Your economies collapse within weeks. She pulled up another display. Intelligence files from each empire's inner councils. Private communications. Secret military plans. Financial records showing corruption and embezzlement. 7 years in your slave labor camps taught us everything about you. We've infiltrated every level of your societies. We know where your leaders sleep, where your children study, where your resources are hidden. We could destroy you from within, and you'd never see us coming. The room fell silent. The Empire representatives stared at the displays with expressions ranging from shock to rage to fear. "You're threatening genocide," the Celtic speaker said. "No," Hannah replied. "Genocide is what you tried to do to us. What we're offering is mercy. Surrender now, accept our terms, and your species survive. Keep fighting, and humanity will burn your empires to ash. We've already proven we can. The only question is whether you're wise enough to stop before we have to." Dae-Hyan watched the proceedings from his seat beside Hannah. He'd expected to feel satisfaction seeing the aliens humbled. Instead, he felt only exhaustion. 7 years of slavery. A year of war. 60,000 humans dead. For what? So they could threaten mass murder to gain freedom. But looking around at young me, at Taeyang, at the others who'd survived hell itself, he knew the alternative was worse. Humanity had tried peace. They'd tried diplomacy. The galaxy had responded with chains. Now they were responding with fire, and the galaxy was finally listening. The Braxian Supreme Commander spoke. "If we accept your terms, what guarantee do we have that humans won't simply conquer the galaxy?" "You don't," Hannah said. "You'll have to trust us the same way you expected us to trust you. The difference is that we actually keep our promises." The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Empire representatives tried to bargain, to reduce the terms, to save face. Hannah refused every compromise. Humanity had bled for its freedom. They weren't going to settle for half measures. On the 3rd day, the empires agreed. The treaty was signed in ceremony, broadcast across the galaxy. Earth received independence and sovereignty over human territories. Reparations would be paid in resources and technology. War criminals would face justice. The 3 empires would reduce their militaries by 70% over 10 years. Humanity became the 9th founding member of a reformed galactic council. When the signing ended, Hannah found a quiet corner of the station and allowed herself to feel it. Relief, grief, victory, loss. Every emotion she'd suppressed for 7 years came flooding back. Young me found her there, crying silently. The medic sat down beside the diplomat and said nothing. Sometimes silence was the only appropriate response to trauma. 2 years passed. Earth rebuilt slowly. Cities that had been harvested for slave labor came back to life. Families reunited, though many found their loved ones had died in camps or combat. The world mourned and celebrated in equal measure. Dae-Hyan stood on the observation deck of humanity's new space station, watching ships come and go. The station orbited Earth, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity could defend itself now. He'd been offered a position as military commander, but he'd declined. He'd seen enough combat for one lifetime. Instead, he worked as a teacher, training the next generation in tactics and strategy. Not because he wanted more war, but because he wanted humanity to be ready if war came again. Young Me had become Earth's chief medical officer. She'd revolutionized galactic healthcare with treatments developed in slave camps. Species that had ignored human medicine for millennia now begged for access to her research. She shared it freely, but always reminded them where those discoveries came from. Suffering had taught humanity things comfort never could doubt. Taeyang commanded humanity's defense fleet. 500 ships, small compared to the old empires, but crewed by people who knew how to fight. He'd grown quieter after the war. Sometimes Dae-Hyan would see him staring at the stars with an expression that suggested he was remembering. Everyone who didn't make it home. Hyan Su designed technology for humanity's expansion into space. Her work combining human innovation with alien tech created devices neither species could have built alone. She still had nightmares about the freighter she'd crashed into the Braxian headquarters. 17,000 deaths. But she never apologized. Some things couldn't be forgiven. Only survived Datpu Ora, managed Earth's communications with the galaxy. She'd become the voice of humanity to alien species, translating between cultures that barely understood each other. It was exhausting work. But after spending years in slave camps, exhausting work felt like freedom. Hannah served as Earth's representative on the Galactic Council. She attended every session, voted on every measure, and reminded the galaxy constantly that humanity was watching. The older species found her uncomfortable. She was too direct, too unforgiving, too willing to call out their hypocrisy. She didn't care. Her job wasn't to make them comfortable. It was to ensure they never forgot what they'd done. An alien delegation arrived at the station one morning. They were from a species called the Netheri, insectoid creatures from the galaxy's edge. They'd discovered aggressive neighbors and needed help desperately. Daehyun escorted them to the meeting room where Hannah waited. The Netheri leader trembled as it spoke. "We know humans have reason to hate the galaxy, but we never participated in your enslavement. We ask humbly for assistance. Our species faces extinction." Hannah studied the aliens carefully. She'd researched the Netheri before the meeting. They'd voted against humanity's enslavement 7 years ago. They'd supported human independence during the war. They'd done nothing wrong except being too weak to stop the empires. "Why should we help you?" she asked. "Because you're strong. Because you've proven yourselves capable. Because we have nowhere else to turn. The galaxy enslaved us. Why should we save the galaxy now?" The Netheri leader bowed low. "Because you're better than we are. Better than the empires. You've suffered and survived. You could become conquerors. But you're choosing to be protectors instead. That's why we came to you." Hannah glanced at Daehyun. He gave a tiny nod. They'd discussed this before the meeting. Humanity had a choice now. They could turn inward, focus only on themselves, and let the galaxy burn. Or they could do something harder. They could be what they'd wished the galaxy had been 7 years ago. "We'll help you," Hannah said, "but on our terms. Human advisors will assess your situation. Human forces will assist if necessary. And in return, you'll establish fair trade agreements and cultural exchanges. No charity. Partnership." "Yes. Thank you. Thank you." The delegation left, grateful and relieved. Daehyun stayed behind as Hannah stared out the window at Earth. "Do you think we're making a mistake?" he asked. "Probably. But sitting back and watching another species get enslaved would be a bigger mistake. The galaxy hasn't earned our help." "No, but maybe we can teach them to be better." Daehyun joined her at the window. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, blue and green and beautiful. Humanity had come so close to losing it, to losing everything. "Jin Woo would be proud," he said quietly. "He'd say we're being idiots, that we should tell the galaxy to solve its own problems. And then he'd help anyway, because that's who he was." Hannah smiled sadly. "Yeah, that's exactly what he'd do." More delegations arrived over the following months. Species that needed technology. Species facing invasion. Species seeking trade agreements. All of them came to humanity, the youngest species in the galaxy, because humanity had proven something the old empires never had. That strength combined with compassion was more powerful than strength alone. 10 years after gaining independence, Earth's economy was booming. Human colonies spread across free space. Human innovation drove galactic advancement. Human tactics were studied in military academies across 100 worlds. The species that had voted to enslave humanity now came as supplicants. They needed human engineers, human soldiers, human doctors, human traders. Earth's influence grew daily. Some humans wanted revenge, wanted to make the galaxy pay for what had been done. But Hannah and the other leaders remembered something important. Revenge was just another kind of slavery. It chained you to the past. True freedom meant letting go and moving forward. That didn't mean forgetting. Humanity built memorials for the 60,000 who died in the war. They held ceremonies for the millions who died in camps. They taught their children about the 7 years of slavery, ensuring future generations would never take freedom for granted. But they also taught cooperation, innovation, the idea that strength used wisely was better than strength used cruelty. Day Haiyan stood in one of those memorials. On the 20th anniversary of liberation, Jin Wu's name was carved in stone alongside thousands of others. He touched the letters gently, remembering his brother's smile, his genius, his sacrifice. "We made it," he whispered. "You died. So many died. But humanity made it. And we're building something better than what came before." Young Mi joined him, her hair now streaked with gray. "Do you think we've changed the galaxy?" "I don't know. Maybe a little. The empires are smaller. Slavery is illegal now. Other species have more rights. That's something. But it's not enough. No, but it's a start." They stood together in silence. Two survivors of hell, two builders of humanity's future. Around them, a memorial filled with others. Veterans, families of the dead. People who wanted to remember. Earth had voted to enslave. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. That breaking a species doesn't make them weaker. Sometimes it makes them stronger. Sometimes it creates warriors who refuse to ever kneel again.